everybody, Karen from Boot the Boss here. So I wanted to talk about business stuff in today's video because I want to talk about online arbitrage and private label, because a couple of people have asked me if they know of a good resource to talk about private label on Amazon, not actually doing private label but identifying private label products for online arbitragers, and I didn't know one, so I thought I better create one. So these are my thoughts on online arbitrage and private label. So I think private label is one of the biggest challenges for online arbitragers, because Amazon, online arbitrage is within Amazon terms of service, but it's probably one of Amazon's least preferred third-party sellers. So, they're happy to bash an online arbitrager if they step on the toes of a private label seller. And not only that, a lot of the time the private label sellers have got, copyright and trademarks and things, and quite rightly, people should not be infringing on those, even accidentally. So what is the best way to tell a private label product? So, BuyBot Pro, when it looks for private label products, it is identifying, it will look for the manufacturer's name. So the first thing to always check is the manufacturer's name in the list of sellers? Because that's a big no-no. So that's a product you should definitely stay away from, because that is going to cause you trouble. So that's the first thing we look for, and that's something that BuyBot Pro looks for. BuyBot Pro also looks for the number of FBA sellers. So if you look at a product and there's only one FBA seller, or there's no FBA sellers, BuyBot Pro will flag that as potentially private label. And it means you need to do some more investigation to it, which will come through in a minute. BuyBot Pro also flags anything that I know is private label from my work in suspensions, which obviously makes it quite unique. And that's brilliant, and that's great, and that's really helpful for you guys. But you need to know how to tell the difference between a private label one and one that is and one that isn't, for yourself, as well as relying on BuyBot Pro, because obviously BuyBot Pro has a lot of information, but as a human you can look for things as well. So one of the things that I think, as I say, the first thing to look for is the manufacturer's name in the list of sellers. So go through the whole list of sellers. If the manufacturer's name appears in there, I personally would stay away from the product. The next thing to look at is how many other FBA sellers. Now, there's no guarantee that even if there's 20 other FBA sellers that you won't get an IP infringement for it. It's not guaranteed at all. But the chances are very, very remote. And most of the time, if there's a lot of sellers and an IP issue comes up, not all the time, but most of the time, Amazon will just say to you, you need to remove the listing. It's because it's then become brand gated while you were selling it. So Amazon don't bash you for that. If you put your products on and you put it up for sale before it was brand gated, and then it becomes brand gated, Amazon will tell you you've got to remove your products. They will give you an opportunity to appeal that. But if you get one of those emails and you can see that all sellers have come off the listing, the chances are it's gone brand gating, and you should just remove your stock and sell it on eBay. But that's something else to look at. So you need to look at a number of sellers. So most of the time, if you've got 2 or more FBA sellers, it's probably not a private label. So there's no guarantee, there's never any guarantees, but it's probably not private label. If there's 1 or 0 sellers, then we need to look in it further. So the first thing I do to then establish what I think about it is I'll look at the listing, because if someone does a listing for a generic product, they kind of just want to chuck the listing up there as quick as possible and just get their product selling. There's not a huge amount of time and effort that goes into the listing. But if the product is a private label product, then they're probably going to go through that listing and do that listing really, really well. So if you find yourself looking at a listing that's got like little stars for the bullets, and it's all been done really professionally, and there's 1 or no other FBA sellers, that would ring an alarm bell for me, because someone selling a generic product doesn't put that sort of effort into their listing. They just don't. But someone with a private label product who's trying to gain traction at one point when they did the listing, it would have been new on Amazon at that point, and they were trying to get traction and trying to get their product noticed, they'd pay a lot of attention to their listing. So that's something else that I look for. And then I think the other way to find out is I Google it. because a lot of the time, if you Google, you know, a brand name and Amazon, and you put that into Google, if it is a private label product that has caused issues with sellers and suspensions in the past, the chances are in that list in Google, it will come up and it will, you know, you'll be able to see people talking about a suspension for a certain brand. So they're all the tricks that I use to look for private labels. So first of all, is the manufacturer selling the product? Check that. Secondly, are there, you know, more than two other FBA sellers? If not, have a decent look at that listing and pay really, really close attention to that listing. So you won't know whether a listing is private label because I've programmed it into BuyBot Pro as private label, because I know it is. But you should be able to find that information out if you Google the brand name and Amazon, and you should be able to see anything in there. You might even be able to see, you know, other sellers talking about it. You might see where else it is for sale, because that can often give you a bit of an indication as well. Because, you know, if it's a brand that sells in loads of different shops all over the place, and the chances are it's probably not going to be a private label product that's going to cause you in trouble. It might be brand registered, but then you'll be gated for it, which is fine. That's not the issue. It's not the brands that have applied for brand registration is not really the problem, because, you know, they'll come up and say you cannot list this brand. You know, it's the ones that haven't applied for the brand registration that have got a trademark or a copyright or something else to do with their product that is likely to cause you trouble. So they're all the things that I do to look for private label. That's how BuyBot Pro works. BuyBot Pro will look for the manufacturer's name and the seller's name for you. It will look at the number of FBA sellers, and it has all the information that I program into it from my suspension work. So when BuyBot Pro tells you something is private label, it's not saying it absolutely 100% is, because BuyBot Pro doesn't know that, you don't know that, I don't know that. You know, all of us, all we can do is make our best guess at the situation. But that's what BuyBot Pro's flagging. So if BuyBot Pro flags it as potentially private label, the first thing I'd probably do is look at the listing and look at how well that listing is done. And I think that gives a lot away about whether it's likely to be a private label. And then say Google it, see what you can find with suspension work on Google, and see if it's for sale generally in loads of other shops. If it's for sale in, you know, the regular high street shops, it's probably not private label. But as I say, there's no guarantees. I can't make any promises because, you know, it's not always obvious, and it's done a little bit unfairly because Amazon don't tell you whether it is or it isn't, and then bash you when it is and you sell it. So it's kind of, you know, you can't always get it right. But they're the tips that I use to help make sure whether I think something is a private label. And very soon, if you work by those tips, you'll start to recognise things, and you'll see in a listing, you'll think, yeah, there's a lot of effort and time I've gone into that listing. Someone's not done that to sell a tube of toothpaste, you know. So pay attention to that. That's a really good tip as well. And I hope this helps, and have a lovely day, and I'll see you in another video.